Hello, church. It is Friday, September 25th, and I am Pastor Colleen. So today, I happen to celebrate the 15th anniversary of my ordination. And it feels like it has been a long 15 years, and at the same time, like no time has passed at all. There is much I could say and share, but I came across a writing by the author Sarah Bessey. She writes about a text from the Gospel of Matthew. Her words spoke to me, and I thought they were perfect to share with all of you today. So from the Gospel of Matthew, the 11th chapter, beginning at the 28th verse, and this interpretation of the Bible is from the Message. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. There are a few things in these words from Jesus that I want to bring to your attention. The first one is this: Jesus acknowledges your weariness and your burden. I find it so healing and helpful and so kind to remember that Jesus doesn't judge the burdened one for the burden, or the sad one for the sadness, or the disappointed one for the disappointment, or the brokenhearted one for the grief. Jesus doesn't say, if you were more faithful, you wouldn't feel like that. This is your fault. You need more quiet times. You need more work, more Bible studies, more prayer, more faith. You deserve this suffering. You need to put others first more. Rather, there is a tenderness to Jesus' words here. God acknowledges, even blesses your weariness and affirms that the yoke has been too heavy. Mother God acknowledges your grief, your burden, your pain, your weariness today. It's okay to rest in that for a while. Allow yourself a moment to see God crouched in the dust with you. I see that you are sad. I see that you are tired. I see that you are weary. I see that this burden has been too great to bear on your own. I am here. The second thing I want to draw your attention to here is the phrase, walk with me and work with me, watch how I do it. After an acknowledgement of your burden, I love that Jesus says, come away with me. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. There is an invitation to Jesus' way of being human that I find incredibly illuminating for all of us still. I began to see the subversiveness of Jesus, long tamed and neutered by the powerful, interpreted away and inoculated. Jesus was embodying a real rest, unforced rhythms of grace. God was feeding the hungry, aligning with the poor and oppressed, honoring children, eating with sex workers and sinners, teaching women and including them in his disciples, washing the feet of his followers, calming storms, laying down his life not to satisfy some cosmic judge, but because of us. Jesus was giving us a glimpse of what it means to live fully within the love of God. It looked like freedom and wholeness and an unforced rhythm of grace. But it was also following Jesus that made me care about climate change and stewardship of the earth and indigenous rights and missing and murdered indigenous women and girls and water. It was following Jesus that made me fully affirm the belovedness and humanity of our LGBTQ+ siblings. It was following Jesus that made me care about justice and borders, about politics and theology, about pronouns and fiscal policy, about maternal health care, justice and refugees, about good food and remembering to sing sometimes. It was following Jesus that compelled me to decolonize my faith, to grapple with my privilege, to cast down and root out white supremacy from not only my own faith, but from the structures and systems of my faith too. It was following Jesus that made me love my Bible again, because Jesus reminded me that he was the Word, the Logos of God, spoken to us. And I could let the Bible be what it was instead of a fourth member of the Trinity, which is not good math, you get it. It was following Jesus that led me to pray for my enemies instead of curse them, that led me to love the ones I used to despise, that reminded me that no longer were we called servants, but instead God called us friends. This is an unforced rhythm of grace. And why? Because Jesus reawakened me, recovered for me, restored me to the gospel of love. Because this is the gospel as I learned it at the feet of Jesus, hanging on to the hem of his garment. The width, length, height, and depth of God's love is not fearful or restrictive or small or dull. It is a wide open love that sets us free. It is a love that never steals, kills, or destroys us. It came that we might have life and life that is more abundant. That it is this love that brings us rest, that lifts burdens, that restores souls, that opens hearts, that changes lives. It turned out that what I thought was the wilderness was actually God's grace and goodness. What I thought was a desert became a place of intimacy with God. That what I thought was a pile of stones was actually an altar where fire would descend. What I thought was exile became home, and the misfits became my friends. What I thought was a dead religion with nothing to offer me but more burdens became a practice of faith that connected me not only to God, but to my neighbor. Those of us who had been wounded became healers. Those of us who were hungry offered bread. Those of us who were thirsty bore water from ancient wells in new wineskins. Those of us who were lonely found home, that the marginalized were the real center of God's geography. What I thought was the wilderness in the beginning turned into a homecoming. Which brings us to the final thing I want to point out about this text, Jesus' invitation to the good work still to do. A yoke isn't necessarily good or evil, it's benign in many ways. It's a tool. It's a tool that connects two creatures to do work together. And Jesus says his yoke is light and it isn't ill-fitting. It's a way of keeping company. This is a gospel of hope, that God cares about our burdens and weariness and suffering, that God enters into them, that God is as present in our suffering as in our joys, in our grief as in our victories, that God has given us good work to do, and God is alongside of us in the hope. That is why the name of Emmanuel is so powerful. It is God with us. Wherever you find yourself in the wilderness, you are welcome. Whether you need the tender acknowledgement of your burden, whether you need to reorient yourself to the radical and inclusive love of God, to the unforced rhythms of God's grace, whether you need a reminder that there is now work to do, not in spite of that love of God, but because of it. The table is wide enough for you, and you are welcome here. Thank you, Sarah Bessey, for those words. Dear church, the end of the story is our healing, our restoration, our hope, our good work in this world. The despised will be celebrated, the last will be first, the least will be the greatest, the injustice will be made right, the oppressed will be released, the captive be set free, the dead will rise, the broken will be healed. God's thumb will wipe away our tears. The mourning will lead the dancing. Thank you, church, for sharing in my anniversary today. Thank you for allowing me to share Sarah's words with you. I hope they are a balm to your soul and that they have reminded you that Jesus' invitation is for you, for me, and for all of us. Rest in it. Be made whole with it. I hope you have a blessed weekend. I will see you again. Bye.